Welcome to Debt Matters. Usually when your phone buzzes with a new text message, you expect something totally mundane.
Yeah, like a package delivery or something.
Right. A delivery driver letting you know they left a package behind the bins, or a dentist appointment reminder. We are conditioned to just glance at the screen and swipe it away. It is just the background noise of everyday life.
It is a reflex. I mean, our phones are basically extensions of our hands at this point, so we process those notifications on autopilot.
But imagine you look down, and it is not a delivery update. It is an urgent, aggressive message about an unpaid bill, and the language is sharp. It mentions enforcement agents. It implies they are coming to your house to take your belongings.
But that makes your stomach drop instantly.
Oh, completely. In that split second, you just freeze. And if you have ever received a message like this, you probably wondered, is this real? Like, are guys in a van pulling up to my driveway right now?
The physical reaction is immediate.
Yeah.
And that jolt of pure panic is the exact physiological response the sender is counting on. They're taking the mundane communication channels that we trust and weaponizing them to just bypass your critical thinking.
So today, we are connecting the dots on a recent enforcement action by the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO.
Right.
They handed down a £300,000 fine to a Manchester-based company called KRA Consultancy Ltd. Our mission here is straightforward. We are looking at the core principle that debt collection must be lawful, accurate, and fair. And we are breaking down what happens when a company builds a business model entirely on manufactured fear instead of following the rules.
Because the boundary between legitimate debt recovery and unlawful intimidation is, strictly defined by law. When companies decide to cross that line, the fallout for everyday people is severe, both financially and psychologically.
Let's start with the sheer scale of this campaign because the numbers are staggering. Between April 2022 and May 2025, KRA Consultancy sent over 5.5 million unsolicited direct marketing texts.
5.5 million.
5.5 million. And this generated more than 60,000 complaints to the ICO and the 7726 spam reporting service.
Let's actually look at what that 60,000 figure represents in reality. Most people, when they get a spam text, they just delete it.
Right, I just swipe and ignore it.
Exactly. To get 60,000 people to actively take the time to report a message requires a really high level of alarm.
I want to break down that reporting mechanism for a second, because forwarding a text to 7726 isn't just dropping a complaint into a suggestion box, right? What actually happens when someone does that?
It triggers a whole technical sequence. When you forward a message to 7726, which spells Pam on a phone keypad, by the way.
Wait, really? I never realized that.
Yeah, it is a clever system. Your mobile provider logs the sender ID and the exact content of the text. Then they share this data across networks and with regulators like the ICO.
Okay, so if one person reports a text, it is just a blip.
Right. But when 60,000 people report the exact same threatening template, the telecom providers can trace the origin back through the aggregators. They essentially map out the specific gateway those texts are flowing through.
So the 60,000 complaints basically built a real-time heat map.
Exactly. A heat map that pointed regulators directly to a single office in Manchester. They handed the ICO the entire infrastructure of the campaign.
Wow.
And what the investigation revealed about who was being targeted is really the darkest part of this whole operation.
Let's get into that, because KRA wasn't just blasting random phone numbers out of a phone book, were they?
No, not at all. This strategy was highly targeted. The company aimed these messages at people who had recently been turned down for loans.
Wait, so people who were already in trouble?
Yes, they were promoting debt solutions to individuals who were, by definition, in a financially vulnerable position.
Right.
These are people actively seeking credit, getting rejected, and then suddenly receiving these high-pressure texts.
How does a random consultancy even know I just got denied a loan by my bank?
That brings us to the mechanics of the secondary data market. When you apply for credit online, especially through comparison sites or subprime lenders, the terms and conditions often include clauses about sharing your data with trusted partners.
The dreaded pre-checked box at the bottom of the form.
Exactly that. If your application is rejected, you become what the lead generation industry calls a distressed lead. Your phone number and the fact that you are actively seeking money are bundled and sold.
That is wild.
KRA was utilizing this ecosystem.
Yeah.
They knew the recipients were financially strapped before they even hit send.
That tactic is entirely predatory. I mean, think about it this way. Imagine you walk into a high street bank, sit down with a loan officer, lay out your financial struggles, and they decline your application.
Right.
You walk out the exit feeling totally crushed, and someone has set up a trap right outside the doors, specifically waiting for the people who just got rejected.
And not just waiting outside the doors, but wearing a fake uniform so you think they have some official authority over you. You have individuals looking for a lifeline, and instead they step right into a net.
That is awful.
And making this worse is the complete lack of due diligence. The company made no proper attempt to check if the data they were using was accurate or if these people had actually consented to receive these marketing messages.
Which is the absolute bedrock of electronic marketing law. You cannot just buy a list of distressed consumers and start firing off texts.
The rules around direct marketing are clear. You need consent. If you buy data from a third-party broker, the responsibility does not just vanish.
Right. You are still on the hook.
You still have to ensure that the people on that list specifically agreed to be contacted by your company for that specific purpose. KRA bypassed that framework entirely.
Let's look at the actual mechanics of these messages, because they were not just saying, hey, need help managing your debt. They were actively manufacturing panic.
Yes.
The tactics used fake bailiff-style threats, suggesting that enforcement agents were on their way to remove goods from the person's home.
Threatening a home visit and the removal of goods is one of the most severe actions in the debt recovery process. Using it casually in an unsolicited text shifts us from being an annoyance to being actively harmful.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second here. Let's look at this from a creditor's perspective. If someone owes money, the collector has a right to ask for it. Debt collectors are allowed to be firm, right?
Yeah.
So where exactly is the legal line between a firm reminder to pay and unlawful pressure?
Well, firmness relies on established facts and due process. You owe a specific amount. Here is the original agreement. You have 14 days to respond before we escalate.
Okay, that makes sense.
Unlawful pressure, which is what we see here, relies entirely on deception to bypass due process.
So the text is not saying you owe us money. It is saying the bailiffs are literally in the van.
Which contrasts completely with how real UK bailiff action works. In the real world, bailiff action does not just appear out of nowhere on a Tuesday afternoon via a text message.
Right.
The authentic process requires strict rules. A judge has to be involved. There has to be a proven debt, which usually leads to a county court judgment.
Right. It is a massive paper trail. It is not just a guy who decides to show up.
It is highly methodical. Even if enforcement agents are authorized by a court, they must send a formal notice of enforcement, giving you at least 7 clear days' notice before they can visit.
Wow, 7 days.
And when they do visit, they must provide proper identification. Authentic enforcement agents do not operate by sending anonymous, frightening texts with a link to click.
It is almost comical if it wasn't so terrifying. The idea that a court-appointed bailiff is going to send you a text with a tiny link saying, click here to save your sofa?
Yeah.
Why do scammers rely on this specific type of threat?
Because fear bypasses logic. When you read a text saying a bailiff is coming to take your belongings, your brain goes straight into a fight-or-flight response. The goal of the sender is to induce a state of panic, so you reply quickly.
They want you moving fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They want you to click a malicious link or share personal details immediately without stopping to verify who you are actually dealing with.
It is cognitive overload. If you are already worried about money, which we know these specific targets were, your bandwidth for rationalizing a threat is just lower. You just want the threat to go away, so you click the link.
The sender knows that if you stop, breathe, and look at the text critically, the illusion falls apart entirely. The fear is a mechanism to force immediate compliance.
Which brings us to the regulatory hammer. The ICO did not just issue a warning here. They fined KRA Consultancy £300,000, and they ordered them to stop sending marketing messages without consent within 30 days.
The financial penalty is meant to be a deterrent, but the ICO noted another detail that is incredibly revealing about how this company operated. KRA was not registered with the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA.
Wait, so they were directing people toward debt solutions and acting as a middleman for financial products, but they were not even authorized by the UK's financial regulator.
No, and that highlights a massive structural red flag. If a company offers financial solutions or debt advice, they must be registered with the FCA. It ensures they adhere to strict standards of consumer protection. Right. The fact that this company operated entirely outside of that framework while aggressively targeting vulnerable people shows a complete disregard for the rules. They were functioning as an unregulated lead generator in a highly regulated space.
Let's talk about the broader lesson here for creditors. A lot of businesses outsource their lead generation. A bank or debt management firm might hire a third party to find clients for them.
Yeah, and if you hire a lead generation company or a debt recovery firm, outsourcing the function does not outsource your liability.
Oh, that is a good point.
You cannot simply turn a blind eye to how people are being approached. Businesses have a duty to audit those processes. If your leads are coming from a company sending out fake bailiff threats, your business is indirectly funding and benefiting from unlawful practices.
The cost of bad practices really comes into focus there. The short-term promise of generating a high volume of leads might look great on a spreadsheet for a quarter, but it is entirely overshadowed by the legal, reputational, and human costs of using unlawful pressure.
Trust is the currency of the financial sector. When fear is used as a business model, trust is damaged across the board. If consumers cannot distinguish between a legitimate communication from their bank and a predatory text from an unregulated broker, the entire system suffers.
They just shut down.
Exactly. People stop answering the phone. They stop opening letters. They hide from legitimate help because they have been burned by deception.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Let's get into the consumer playbook. If your phone lights up tomorrow with the scary enforcement text, what are the actual actionable steps you should take?
First and foremost, acknowledge the feeling of panic, but do not let it dictate your next action. Scammers operate on speed, so your primary defense is time.
Step 2, do not click any links in the message, even if the text says click here to stop enforcement, right?
Oh, absolutely. Do not click. The links in these texts are rarely straightforward. They often lead to phishing forms disguised as official government or banking portals designed to capture your national insurance number or your bank details.
Or what else?
Or simply clicking the link validates to the sender that your phone number is active.
So you essentially prove there's a human on the other end, which guarantees your number gets sold to more lists.
You end up on what the industry calls a suckers list.
That is terrifying, and obviously do not reply with any personal or financial information.
Never. A legitimate organization will not ask you to confirm your bank details or your address via a cold text message. If you reply, you just hand them the puzzle pieces they need to steal your identity or empty your account.
Instead, check independently if the company is real, regulated, and authorized. If they claim to be from a specific bank, close the text, open your browser, find the bank's official number, and call them directly.
Slow the entire situation down. If a message claims to be about bailiff action, demand written evidence.
Because scammers hate paper trails.
They do, because paper trails cost money and leave physical evidence. Tell them to send in court documents in the post. Seek professional advice from legitimate, free debt charities before ever making a payment. A threatening text does not automatically mean money is owed or that bailiffs are actually coming.
It is about reclaiming your power in that moment. You control the pace of the interaction, not the text message. Dealing with debt problems is inherently stressful. It keeps people awake at night.
Yeah, good.
The real solution relies on fair treatment, clear communication, and lawful recovery, not manufactured panic.
Genuine financial recovery starts with clarity and support, not a heart-stopping threat on your mobile screen.
Which leaves us with a final thought to consider. We know that over 60,000 people recognized this campaign as unlawful and took the time to forward the text to 7726 or report it to the ICO.
But if 60,000 complained at a 5.5 million texts sent, how many thousands more silently panicked? How many people sitting alone in their kitchens clicked the link and handed over their data because they were terrified of a fake bailiff showing up at their door?
It really leaves you wondering about the unseen, lasting digital footprint of those who fell for the fake threats and where that personal information ends up next.